acordo pensando em você. Eu acordo pensando em você. Não consigo deixar de pensar no seu lindo sorriso. Só de pensar em você faz meu coração bater. Uma das razões pelas quais eu continuo vivendo é por causa de como você me faz sentir. Minha mente está correndo, eu quero você, mas não posso ter você. Estamos em
Hello everyone, welcome back. It is Goblin King, and I'm going to go over one of the greatest errors I believe we have in society today, especially American society, but I think it's a lot amongst a lot of the developed nations. Going through to it, I'm talking about it through anime because I feel like that's one thing I've noticed. And starting off, I'm just going to go with the relatability of anime, right? I feel like anime has stories. Some stories do not fit in our personalities as much. Some of them you can relate to, you can connect with the characters, you feel like you've done that, you feel like, wow, I feel the exact same way. And sometimes you're like, that is completely abnormal. What is going on? And that's why I have two different representations here of Yosuga no Sora and Kaguya-sama Love is War. Honestly, I felt like I enjoyed both series most of the time. I felt like Yosuga no Sora definitely was very different, right? I don't think you're ever going to see a story like it that is told. To me, the ending was very emotional, and honestly, Kaguya-sama kind of fell off to me at the end, and it's because of one very specific thing. And going off, the reason why is due to physical intimacy in anime, and I have different ones which have either implied or literally visually show it, right? And I feel like it's something that everyone has. I mean, everyone's born through this process, right? But it seems like something that we have over emphasized in importance everywhere. I feel like, I mean, I'm a student, right? I'm a high school student, and for me, one of the saddest things is just going around, and that's all that people can talk about. They're like, well, what are you gonna do in college? Are you gonna have a, you're gonna, like, I'm like, why does that matter? I mean, if you're going to school, you're gonna spend a lot of money. And why is that the first thing that you think about? Like, one of the first things you think about is physical intimacy. So I think that's just a shame. But going over one of the biggest problems in our society, I mean, I think it's just the fact that this is so prioritized. There's so many issues with it, and even though it's not necessarily it's not necessarily directly to this, it definitely causes a lot of issues tied to it. So indirectly, and I think it's just a shame. I feel like I just don't feel like we're doing the best we can do, and I just think it's kind of sad. I feel like for me, when you look at young kids, I mean, I go to my brother's elementary school, and you just see kids just playing, just having fun. And you go to middle school and high school, and suddenly everything matters. How you look, what you wear. And to me, it's like, why? Like, why do you feel like you have to change who you are to fit in? And I think that's just completely wrong. And that comes up to one of the lamest excuses. And that is saying it is or it is not normal. I feel like no matter what the issue is, to say something is normal or not is completely just, to me, ruins your argument entirely. I do not want to hear that. It's just lame. I feel like you can make a much better case for that, like put some actual facts behind it. But saying something's normal, I mean, we always talk about being accepting of people, and people are going to be different. Everyone's different. People have different personalities, have different interests. We do different things. We eat different things, different cultures. And I think in a way, just because you're different doesn't mean you have to be divided. But then when we start saying like, oh, that's not normal, or why aren't you doing this? This is a completely normal thing to do. It just is a lame justification. I just feel like if people see you a certain way, right? I mean, you don't have to. You can do whatever you want, guys. Really. I mean, I don't think you should have to base your decisions based on other people's judgments. But I don't think that you should have to change who you are because you're afraid of fitting in. I just think it's kind of sad for me when you see a lot of people. Like, I honestly, when I go to school, I don't really have a lot of trust in anyone. I don't really go. I mean, I hang around people, but it's not like I invite them. I don't really feel like I fit in anywhere. And people are like, oh, why don't you do this? I go, look, I mean, that's not. I don't feel comfortable in those situations. Like, why should I have to change my values because it's not normal? Like, I feel like no one's made a good argument for that case. I remember one thing is I didn't want to walk at graduation. This is relatively recently, and people at school were like, well, that's not normal. And I go, why does that matter? Whether something's normal. I go, why are you walking? He goes, well, everyone else is doing it. And I mean, I can understand like the importance for some people. Like my teacher made a good case for it, saying that I mean families. But for me, I mean, with my situation, my parents being divorced, my situation with my mom, and it's tough. But I feel like using the case whether something is normal or not is just a very weak argument. And that comes to my next thing. I just said general morality, but going over the two different stories, Kaguya-sama Love is War and Yosuga no Sora, just the scenarios they're in, I felt like, I mean, I think we're much more accepting of Kaguya-sama's The Love is War. I feel like I've heard people say, well, that's a great story, one of my favorite series of all time. And really, they're just two students, relatively smart, which for me, that's pretty much everyone around who I hang around with. I feel like throughout the story, there's definitely scenes where they're like, oh, it says a third of people do this, oh. And at the end, one of the worst scenes was at the very end when Kaguya's maid says, I'm glad that Kaguya is finally behaving normal. And I think that is one of the worst things. That kind of ruined the whole thing for me. And I don't know, it just really pushed me away from this series. I feel like it's just, why is it that we have to behave in a certain, I mean, look, I understand like we have rules and there's laws, but why is it that you have to behave very specifically? Like if you don't, like, in a way, not doing some of the things that they did does not break the law in any way. But why is it that that is seen as abnormal? Like why can you say that that's kind of like wrong in a way? Not that they can have any punishment assigned to them, but in a way, they're not necessarily going to be accepted the same. And that's just what I got from it. Not necessarily that's what it's trying to push out. Yosuga no Sora was saying is that they're siblings, right? And in a way, throughout most of the series, is that they don't really care whether they fit in or not. They already are kind of outcasted. I mean, they're orphans. And one of the saddest lines, and it's kind of interesting, is that Kaguya-sama made me mad when Hayasaka said, I'm glad that Kaguya is normal, versus in Yosuga no Sora, I think she was the student council president, and she goes, that's not normal. And there's a lot of things, I feel like in a lot of people's relationships that are not normal. But when you get mad at someone for something, it doesn't hurt anyone, right? And using an excuse that's not normal and outcasting them for that. I mean, look, you can say it's not socially accepted or not, but that's one thing that I feel like Yosuga no Sora explores is, I mean, we outcast people for things that are not socially accepted, and some of those things, I mean, Yosuga no Sora definitely brings it to a new extreme, but some cases are not that extreme, and I feel like it happens a lot of the time. I feel like, for me, it's like people are going to college and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna drink, and they're not, I mean, for California laws, definitely it's 21, and it's like, I mean, why is it that we seek breaking rules? And in a way, people that don't do that are not necessarily socially accepted. Not necessarily that they're doing anything wrong, right? And in a way, you're not breaking the law. But in a way, I think it's so odd that we willingly accept to go, and that when people do something that other people are doing, that we kind of justify it for it being normal. And I think that's a terrible excuse. One thing that my dad kind of gets uncomfortable with is with my parents' divorce, is when people tell him and they go, don't worry, kids will adapt, right? The kids will be fine. They're resilient. And my dad kind of gets upset because he feels like that society has normalized divorce, which it really has, especially in California. And that's one thing that really scares me a lot. Probably one of the things that scares me the most right now is just the direction we're going. There's some things, I mean, I'd love to have children in the future. I'd love to get married, have a loving wife, but to me, I wouldn't want to put myself in a situation or my future kids in a situation of going through a divorce. I mean, I think it's hard on everyone, and I think it really definitely promotes. I mean, divorce itself promotes. Um, I mean, look, it's to me, it's crazy that in politics, right, that two people sleep together, that they can get fired, right, and they'll do like the other people will go chase them down and try to get them fired, but in a regular day person, I mean, we don't hold those people to those standards. I mean, in a way, it doesn't really it doesn't really matter, right? There's not huge punishments for that, but it's so odd that you put it in a certain scenario and it becomes wrong. And it's not that it's wrong; it's that it's really a contradicting idea. So it's really, I think that in a way, some of these things, like especially politics, has really diluted it. Doesn't change the fact that those problems I think are wrong, right? But it's just, I think it's just a shame. I feel like all the issues with like affairs, cheating, have kind of been diluted, and I think it's created a lot of divorce. I think it kind of ruins. I mean, I feel like in a way, it's promoted people. Like it's not about like love necessarily. It's about something totally different. Honestly, I mean, I would love to be in a relationship where it's loved, it's two-sided, but I don't feel like that's necessarily what a relationship is. And one thing, personal level, I get to is when people like ask for praise, and not sometimes you're deserving of praise, right? And I mean, I'd praise anyone that like. I mean, like my mom when she cooks for me, my sister does. So let's go back. I don't know why it switched over. But when like my sister, I mean, I think one of the sad things is I'm all for women's sports. I think women's sports are great. I'm all for women's rights. But the one thing that gets me is when like my sister, she goes, "Oh, you didn't say thank you," and I go, I mean, look, I to me, one thing I told her one time is I go, if everyone says like thank you, I don't feel like sometimes jumping in feels as impactful. I'd rather say it like for me when it means it's meaningful, right? Um, um, and I feel like sometimes you go, oh, I did this. You're not doing it because it's what's best for everyone. You're doing it because you want the praise. I know one time my sister was like, oh, look, I made this cake for you. You guys better say thank you. And it's like, you're getting mad because you did something for everyone. And in a way, you should be proud because you did do something for other people. And I think it's tough because I know that sometimes people are taken advantage of for those situations. I feel like sometimes people don't necessarily get acknowledged for the work they do, and I think that's terrible. But I don't think you necessarily have to be demanding praise either. I feel like it goes both ways. It's tough though because in a scenario, I will definitely say that if it's a scenario, either person can be taken advantage of, and it's really sad. But I think sometimes it's just that's the problem. We need balance in a lot of things. I feel like there's not necessarily one solid answer. I remember watching this Netflix economy show talking about this one dude goes around helping people see where their money is going, realize that they can have a better life without necessarily changing a whole lot. Like, it's not necessarily like cutting out all these things, doing all that, but it's just realizing, being aware, and being willing to talk about it, remove those problems that you would otherwise have. One situation was there was a couple, right? The woman was the one that had the job and she was making a lot of money for the family, and the dad was the one staying at home. And they had discussions about it, right? And in a way, I saw them both as right. And some people were like, "Oh yeah, that woman, she's so." And then some of the girls got upset about that in our class. And sometimes the other way. I mean, like the guy's working and like he wants to go back to work too. And it's like, I mean, whatever works to get you guys by. But I mean, just because one person's argument can be correct doesn't mean that the other person's argument can't also be correct. And that's why there's a lot of balance. And a lot of the things we do, I mean, when it comes to politics especially, I mean, we have two parties that are drastically different right now. And usually, I mean, you can make a good case for an argument, but it doesn't mean that it's going to resolve everything. And a lot of times it's about finding that in-between. And one thing, though, that really hurts that idea of the in-betweens is that when some people are so power hungry, extreme, that you can't negotiate. I mean, in a country where everything's built upon negotiations, right? I mean, the U.S. is the Constitution is of compromise. Um, it's really hard to make a compromise, trying to find that in between spot when one side does not want to compromise at all, right? So let's say, I mean, it's like bidding. Let's say you go to haggle a price down, right? If you go, this seems like a reasonable price, and you go right in the middle off the bat, then you're going to be paying more than you would feel like is reasonable, right? That's the thing, is I feel like a lot of people, I mean, there's got to find a balance, but sometimes the balance, you give them balance off the bat, and they won't take it. So it's really hard to find that balance when no side is really willing, when either side is not willing to find to do what is best. And that happens everywhere. You can see that in individual households. You can see that in politics. You can find that in businesses, people that work jobs, employers, bosses, everywhere. It's really hard to find compromise when one side is not wanting to, right? So sometimes what's the best scenario is, I mean, that's what we see all the time, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of arguing, and it's really toxic, really, is we have really extreme stances. And I think it's sometimes, I mean, you see like one side say, oh, this is wrong, and the other side go, well, you should do this, and the other side, well, why should we do that entirely? Like, they take a really extreme stances, and they will not move from them, and it's really bad for everyone involved. Even the people that aren't necessarily directly in discussions. Like, that's when it comes like with families, situations with parents, and the children can be really heavily impacted despite not being heavily involved. Well, I'm talking about this a lot. Let's go to the next one. I'm just going over context. Why did Kaguya-sama why did it hurt me so much in that scenario? I felt like it kind of felt like it was like forced. Not necessarily that the scene pushed it, but that I felt like the characters felt pushed. And in the end, it did have a good ending. It ended up being together, so I felt like it ended up working out. But it just felt like they're young, and it's like just kind of felt like it was kind of pushed. Some extreme stuff happened in the final episodes on Crunchyroll, definitely, so it's kind of hard catching up as well. One thing is, though, is that this should be level 2, or chilling in another world with level 2 super cheat powers, skills, whatever. And this one, honestly, did not feel like that way at all. And one thing I realized as I was going over is that, I mean, they were married, right? Whether he wanted to get married to her or not. But, I mean, they had a good relationship. Not that they didn't have one either. It's just that, I mean, they were moving at their own pace. They were going when they wanted to, not when they kind of felt forced into this. They're like, well, and they brought it up multiple times. They go, well, 33% of high schoolers do this. And it just kind of felt like they were being pushed into this, even if they weren't necessarily completely ready. And they might have been fine at the end, right? But it's just really hard because I feel like society pushes people to do things they otherwise wouldn't. And sometimes you can say those are good things, those are good. But honestly, I feel like in general, it's not, people do not like being uncomfortable. And honestly, I really hate being uncomfortable too. And I think it's not good to be pushing people into uncomfortable situations. So my biggest argument right here is it's not normal. But I also like to say that we need to have compromise. So in a way, saying this is one of the greatest errors in society, not normal. And I could say there's 2 of the greatest errors in society. Going off of imbalance and going to whether things are normal or not. I mean, I feel like those are 2 really good issues. I don't think like a lot of people think about those. I feel like I talked to my dad, and my dad goes, yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point. But no one ever talks about balance. No one ever talks about like what's so important about being normal. And honestly, I feel like you should be comfortable with who you are. But I also would say when it comes to that is being comfortable with who you are does not mean you change yourself to do that. I feel like to me, I'm honestly very like anti like makeup. I feel like sometimes people wear too much makeup. I go, why do you feel like you have to change your facial appearance for other people? And honestly, that's some of these cosmetic surgeries too. I go, why do you feel like you have to permanently alter your appearance? You're doing something that's not 100% safe. I mean, like, makeup's probably relatively safe, but doing some of these surgeries, I mean, there are complications that could happen. And why do you feel like you need to take a risk so that way you feel like you can be accepted in society? And honestly, I feel like that's one thing I've seen with some conservative sides is I feel like liberals say do whatever, like whatever, and I feel like some conservatives, they're like, oh well, they're so extremely opposite. I feel like, and I feel like it's kind of in between. I don't think you can say that changing your body is like necessarily a good thing, but I also think that you shouldn't be saying like, well, just like you're saying someone that's fat is not gonna find anyone that's gonna love them or care about them, and I think that's also pretty rude. And honestly, yeah, I mean, kind of mean. And I mean that's why I find it really hard to find people that I personally trust, respect. I'd say there's probably only a couple people in politics right now that I have respect for. Both new people, and honestly, I mean, some of these people, like if they were to have an affair too, I mean, that completely ruins my picture of them. Because of the respect I have for them right now. And honestly, it doesn't mean that any of their ideas are wrong. Like, you can, just because you're not a perfect person does not mean you have any wrong ideas. Or it does not mean all your ideas are wrong, or all your ideas are perfect, just because you agree with someone a lot. It's always finding balance, and I think that has to come first in anything. So yeah. Thank you guys for hearing me out. I don't think I said it perfectly. Feel free to ask questions. I'm not necessarily comfortable with speaking my thoughts out. But I'll gladly message you guys back if you guys have any questions about that. So thank you guys so much for listening. You guys are good listeners. So thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys later.